64th gene key, the AURORA. Programming partner, 63rd gene key. Codon ring, the ring of alchemy. 6, 40, 47, 64. Physiology, pineal gland. Amino acid, glycine. The 64th shadow, confusion, the chaos of the elements. With the 64th gene key, we come to one of the greatest mysteries of existence, the mystery of inner light. When this light is obscured within a human being, it results in confusion, the 64th shadow. Confusion is the great human shadow state. It sweeps across our world like a great blanket, smothering, disempowering, and screening the mass consciousness from the true nature of reality. As the last of the 64 gene keys in their sequential form, the 64th gene key offers us some final warnings. This is, after all, the shadow of confusion. As we see repeatedly throughout the 64 gene keys, the shadows are not inherently bad in the sense of being evil. They are, in fact, the raw material of the higher fields of consciousness, like the nugget of coal that may hide a diamond of great beauty. As the confusion reveals its underlying nature and begins to coalesce into an organized etheric substance, it becomes in turn the wonder of human imagination. Finally, when the imagination transcends itself at the highest frequencies, the inner light at the heart of all creation explodes inside your being as spiritual illumination. This is the journey of every human being. Confusion in itself is a perfectly natural state. The ancient alchemists referred to this state as the massa confusa, the chaos of the elements, likening it to the primal swirling that preceded the birth of the universe. Confusion is a state with neither order nor structure. It is a state rippling with pure potentiality. Only when the human mind attempts to interpret it does it become bewildering. If you are able to look into this primal state of consciousness without engaging your mind in any way, you will see the true nature of being manifested as illumination, the 64th siddhi. Each of the 64 shadows is born out of the human mind's tendency to identify with whatever it sees. This tendency creates a biofeedback loop between the two polarities of each shadow state. In this case, the loop is generated between the 64th shadow of confusion and its programming partner, the 63rd shadow of doubt. Here is how it works. At every moment, your thinking reflects the way in which the inner body is feeling. If your overall frequency is low, you generally feel a kind of background unease throughout your physical, emotional, and mental bodies. This unease is generated by the global frequency in which we all live. In other words, every human being feels the suffering of the whole world through the quantum field that connects us all. The more you listen into your body, the more you will attune to this collective sense of unease that is rooted in fear. Most people develop patterns from an early age to escape feeling this vast desert of world pain, and the mind is the first line of defense. As long as we are addicted to thinking, we can avoid fully feeling it. This suffering within each human being is rooted entirely in the past. It came down into you through your ancestral DNA and was transferred to you as a child through the coping strategies of your parents and peers. Your basic urge to flee from this pain will keep you from ever facing what you really are, and this fact, lying deep within your cells, gives rise to another of the great human shadows, self-doubt. We human beings doubt ourselves because we are not really ourselves in the first place. Instead, We inhabit the confusion, and the more our minds try to cope with this confusion, the more we feed our own self-doubt. It is a biofeedback loop. At the general low frequency of the planet, the mind cannot escape itself, but instead keeps feeding its own illusions. Those illusions then play out through the course of events that we call our lives. Thus, our true potential is never fully lived. Or as Thoreau so aptly put it, we lead lives of quiet desperation. If you take just about any human being and you scratch the surface of their awareness, you will very soon uncover layers and layers of repressed pain. The mind lives in a state of permanent confusion, trying to make it all go away. But confusion is a dead-end street. It is a falsity fabricated by the mind. The moment the mind stops thinking, the confusion ends, which shows you what a sham it is. As you will shortly see at the Siddhic frequency, the state that we refer to as confusion is actually the holiest state of awareness there is. To return to our discussion of this gene key, it is all about light. All the 64 gene keys are really about light. This light, which is the inner nature of consciousness, is inherent within all forms. It lies obscured until evolution allows it to naturally reveal itself. This is the process of alchemy, the greatest science of all sciences. The 64th gene key is an integral aspect of the ring of alchemy, which includes 3 other great alchemical gene keys: the 6th gene key, which causes confusion in your relationships, the 47th gene key, which locks you into a futile battle with your own mind, and the 40th gene key, which leads to a profound feeling of isolation. When you are confused, you are alone. The light that moves through the 64th gene key wants more than anything to enthuse and fire your mind with inspiration rather than confuse you. But it depends on your attitude, which is the litmus test for your general level of frequency. Therefore, when you are feeling low, it is always best to transmute your thinking onto a higher plane. If you are unable to do this, at the very least, you need to wait out the phase and allow it to evolve of its own accord. If you are patient and unreactive, the light will shine through in the end. Repressive nature, imitating. It takes an enormous amount of energy to repress our inherited human pain. To repress that amount of pain, you actually need a great deal of support from others, ironic as that may seem. This support comes in the form of the status quo, from the millions of others who also hide from the truth of how the world feels and bury themselves in activity and thinking. Half of the world represses their confusion through imitation. They do what their parents did, or they do what their friends and teachers do. Imitation is the arch enemy of imagination. It is a massive illusory safety net devised by the collective to keep from feeling the state of the world as it is. Repressive natures combat their fear through imitating everyone else. Some of them even manage to look original whilst they are doing it. Reactive nature, confused. There are those whose nature simply cannot handle repressed feelings. Certain types of physiology are not designed to deal with the sustained voltage of pain held beneath the surface, at least not for any significant length of time. In such people, the core human pain held in their DNA is externally expressed through their outer lives. Such lives are always incredibly confused. These are the people who simply cannot stay in relationship without being abusive. Whilst the repressed nature is a victim of the status quo, the reactive nature is a victim of their anger towards the status quo. Their lives are lived in an unconscious attempt to take revenge on life itself. These people react against the status quo, often in an aggressive and unpredictable manner. Out of this basic dynamic between repressed and reactive, you can clearly see how both the abuser and the abused are born. The 64th gift, imagination, the art of life. The depth of agony felt and expressed by the human race is both born and resolved in the genetic coupling of the 64th gene key and its programming partner, the 63rd gene key. Despite the reality of the pain we are born into as we enter a human body, there is good news. The solution is so simple. The suffering we feel, though real within the context of our physiology, is an illusion when it comes to our minds, and our minds hold the key to its release. As we see at the shadow frequency, the mind automatically collapses into confusion when faced with the pain underlying life. If you were taken out of your everyday life and placed in solitary confinement for even the space of a single week, you would soon feel the profound pain that lies within your body. With nothing to do and nothing to distract your awareness, the pain quickly comes to the surface. Interestingly, this is one of the roles of meditation, to allow this pain to rise to the surface of your awareness so that it can be transmuted. All it takes is willingness to feel the pain, and the miracle begins. Once you realize that there is no point in trying to make the pain go away, you may finally begin to see the loop you have been caught in. It is your mind that continually takes you away from the pain. As your inner spirit decides to face who you really are, for the first time ever, the mind's tricks are witnessed. In that witnessing, the mind's long reign over you gradually begins to crumble. The more you watch your mind trying to understand and/or avoid the confusion, the more a shift inside you begins to occur. Thinking takes a great deal of energy. Something has to feed all those neurons. Thus, the moment you take away the mind's food, your belief that it can help you, all the energy that was going into feeding it is gradually liberated. In certain rare cases, this energy can be abruptly liberated, causing the phenomenon known as sudden enlightenment. All natural energy or life force has one inbuilt program: to grow and evolve. This is the nature of life. Thus, when you release the quantum energy that was latent inside you, it begins to rise. As it rises, the evolutionary force takes a hold of your mind and begins to paint with it. This is how true creativity is born and the human imagination is unleashed. Imagination is the expression of unimpeded life force coursing through your genetics. This is the 64th gift. Imagination is born out of confusion, but only when you embrace confusion without trying to change it. Imagination allows alchemy to occur inside your being. In the beginning, you may paint, write, sing about, or simply tell the story of your pain and how it feels to you. It doesn't matter what form the pain takes. What matters is that it can be expressed and accepted. In fact, at the gift frequency, pain can be more than simply expressed. It can become art. If you allow your pain, or the world pain, to be expressed through an artistic process, you will see alchemy in progress. Your art will follow a natural sequence of archetypes. You will begin by descending symbolically into the underworld and give voice and shape to the demons and fear frequencies that live there. As you allow your frequency to rise further, your demons will gradually reveal their hidden nature. The light will emerge from inside them, and the frogs will become princes. All true art is alchemical. Artistic process that does not release the inner light is simply the art of the shadow consciousness finding its way into imagination. As long as you are courageous and honest, your expression will continue to evolve naturally to the higher frequencies. Eventually, we all end up painting the angels. The other great power of imagination is that it spells the death of imitation. To imagine means to go where no one else has been before, to break free from mental, intellectual, and cultural constraints, and let your mind soar upon the wings of your heart. Imagination is abstract, illogical, and wild. It creates wormholes between worlds, moving too swiftly to analyze itself for meaning or reason. To imagine is to leap, to bound, and to whoop with delight outside of all logic and pattern. It is the source of all art. Those who exemplify the gift of imagination understand light and the properties of light. Light makes images possible, and images are the fuel of imagination, as the etymology of the word suggests. To imagine is therefore to see and envision, shape, color, form, and movement. It bridges inner vision with the outer eye. It allows your life to become a work in progress, a true work of art. The 64th Siddhi, illumination, enlightened poetry. The 64th Siddhi is the Siddhi of illumination. This is imagination without the I. When that I surrenders its need to exist, magic shines through. The evolutionary force obliterates the identification with form, and illumination floods your being. When you approach a Siddhic state, you often experience occasional glimpses of that state before it fully detonates inside you. There are many different types of spiritual and religious experience. Different teachers speak of different states. Some advocate specific disciplines to attain these states, whilst others say they can only be attained when discipline has been entirely dropped. All words spoken from the Siddhic state carry the same truth. They simply come through one of these 64 genetic slants. Therefore, if you attach meaning to the words spoken by a particular master, you will very probably go adrift. You only have a 1 in 64 chance of meeting someone who speaks the exact language that matches your own potential primary siddhis. Perhaps the best advice for anyone who has contact with a person manifesting a Siddhic state concerns the difference between hearing and listening. Only when you stop listening to such a person will you finally hear them. In this context, we are not talking about mental listening. The mind listens in order to end its own confusion. It is as though someone is talking to you, but you cannot hear them because you yourself are talking at the same time. But the moment you let go of the meaning of the words, your true being can hear what is really communicated in the illusory space between you. Siddhis can only be transferred through silence. It is the silences between the words that carry the transmission. If a teacher is really gifted, the pattern of their speech will calm the listener's mind, inducing a kind of trance in which truth can be transferred. For centuries, masters have used confusion as a means to stop the mind in its tracks and transfer the wordless truth. Perhaps one of the greatest examples is the Zen approach, which gives the mind an unsolvable paradox known as a koan on which to meditate. These koans so confuse the mind that eventually it stops to rest and regains some of its energy. In that rest, a leap of consciousness known as a satori takes place. If you have the 64th gene key prominent within your hologenetic profile, you may experience these sudden leaps in consciousness. Sometimes confusion is direct, like the Zen approach, and sometimes it is indirect. The indirect transmission of truth uses paradox or poetry to pacify the mind. If you know how to listen to poetry, then you are always close to truth. Poetry is a metaphor for the wordless. It dances along the banks of silence, teasing you to enter. The 64th Siddhi of Illumination and its programming partner, the 63rd Siddhi of Truth, represent the two wings of Tantra and Yoga, opposite paths towards the same ultimate reality. These are the higher frequencies of art and science, respectively. Whereas yoga is a path of discipline aiming at progressive attainment of higher truth, Tantra is the path of surrender, which deals in sudden leaps in consciousness. Those who manifest the 64th Siddhi are those who teach spontaneously. They will use anything they feel like using as an illustration of what it means to be one with truth. There is no logic or pattern to such people or their teachings. They may even use logic as a device and then contradict it entirely through their behavior or words. The Tantric path is the easiest path to misunderstand because it cannot be followed with the mind, but only with the heart. It takes a certain degree of madness in a person to follow this path, uncharted as it is. It is the path of the poetic soul, the lover of wildness, of spontaneity, of paradox, the lover of the moment. When illumination floods your being, it also takes possession of your mind. In this sense, to be illuminated means to think God's thoughts. Such thoughts are beyond our very concept of thought. At this level, the mental body gives way to the causal body. See the 22nd gene key, which allows indwelling awareness to become one with thought itself. Such thought makes no sense to the mind, but burns itself white-hot into your very DNA. At the divine level, your causal body, sometimes called your soul, becomes your physical vehicle. This great mystery is the reason why the initiatic traditions say that after enlightenment you can no longer incarnate in the world of form. You can incarnate as a subtle higher being, but not as a carbon-based life form. Once the frequency of inner light illuminates physical form, that form begins to ascend. It may or may not be able to ascend physically, depending upon its genetic constituents. Physical ascension is directly dependent upon divine will, the 40th Siddhi, and as such it is always predestined. Only certain evolutionary human vehicles are equipped for this purpose. This is the meaning of transfiguration, the 47th Siddhi. The causal body effectively draws the physical body up into itself. Only the higher codes of the ring of alchemy involve such rare occurrences. The 64th Siddhi also gives rise to the aureole, the halo surrounding the head of the enlightened. This image, so prevalent in the religious art of so many cultures, is a direct reflection of the Siddhi of Illumination as it has occurred throughout history. The Siddhi of Illumination is the direct expression of divine mind. Divine thoughts manifest instantly in the world of form, such is their power. Thus, one in the Siddhic state of illumination directly experiences divine creation. If there is any identification with these thoughts, the indwelling awareness will see itself as a god or messiah, endlessly creating the world through thought. However, the highest state of illumination negates any form of identification. Divine thoughts cannot be understood. They are simply conduits of different frequencies, woven together into beautiful ideas, poems, words, or images. They have nothing to do with the body or brain that generates them. They are solely for the inspiration of others. Such a siddhi makes no sense, and yet it also makes the most perfect sense of all. To be illuminated by the 64th siddhi is to remain empty, while being constantly flooded with the rainbow colors of the inner aurora. It is to be an easel for the imagination of the universe itself. The wind on the water sings with a face of forgotten words.